Put your thinking caps on with us as we step up to the chalkboard to help Matt Damon solve life's problems in Good Will Hunting. Stay with us. Welcome, friends, to the 3324 podcast, a vast playground of music and movie goodness. Eric, would you say that?
Yes.
It's like a playground, like we've got monkey bars, and then we've got slides, and depending on how many guests we have, sometimes it is a jungle gym. It's a hot mess. But then sometimes it's just you and I, like on a seesaw.
Where is this? You're fixated with games, board games. What? I feel like we're playing Chutes and Ladders here.
It could be like that as well.
Well,
or should I say it's just like the game of life?
Yeah. Well,
we're playing the game of
life.
And this podcast should be a part of your life. If you're joining us for the first time, go ahead and give us a rating on whatever podcast provider you're listening to us on. Just give us 5 stars. It goes a long way towards kind of bumping us up in the search results, and we'd be forever grateful. I think, Eric. I think that's the main point. As my silly puns and anecdotes aside, we really appreciate everybody's support and checking us out. So,
yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Without further ado, we've got it's fun. And we've got hopefully another fun episode lined up. We've got 2 guests, kind of an old home reunion of sorts, hearkening back to the era of this film. But first, let's welcome Christy Cuomo. Welcome back, Christy.
Thank you for having me.
How are you?
I am doing well. How are you?
I'm doing well. Good to have you on.
We are doing well.
We are doing well. Well, she asked me how I was doing.
Okay.
So she should actually she should then go to Eric and say, Eric, how are you?
Eric, how are you?
I'm just peachy. Yeah.
We're doing well.
No, I'm talking to Eric now.
And making his debut, which could be his last appearance, depending on how he feels.
That goes. Yeah. we're not making a good impression here.
Mr. Kevin Howard, and I've known Kevin for quite a long time, quite a few years.
Yeah.
And he is a producer. He works currently for AMC Networks. But I think he's got some news to share with us today, because he has been immortalized in the Star Wars universe as of today.
Yes.
So why don't you share us a little about what happened?
Hi, Eric. Hi, Christy.
Hi, Kevin.
I've also known Kevin Howard for as many years as Dean. He left me out of that.
It's like 25. But it's the 40th anniversary of Return of the Jedi this year.
Mm-hmm.
So Lucasfilm put out a book of 40 short stories by various authors. And my buddy Adam Lance Garcia wrote one. And there's a character with basically a misspelling of my first name and my wife's last name. So open up the book and meet Vecin Menez.
And that is you.
And you are now going to be Nicole Vecin.
Vecin Menez.
And that's fantastic.
Yeah. That's fantastic. Yeah.
So he is part of the Star Wars canon. So you could say Chewbacca, you could say Din Djarin, and you could say Vecin, all in the same breath. And if people don't know the third one, well, then they're just not paying attention.
Vecin Melendez? What was the last name? I'm sorry.
Menez.
Menez.
Vecin Menez.
And this
it's not Googleable yet.
Are you bad?
I've been trying all day. Well, Christy, I haven't read the story yet, but
my!
So maybe we should have had you read that before you promote it. You could be like the
it got here, and oh my god,
it'd be like the trafficker of spice.
Here an hour ago.
It's even worse that you have it there and haven't read it.
You don't want to be the Jar Jar Binks of this story.
No.
Or young Anakin.
So that is the from a certain point of view, is it not?
That's correct.
Yeah, they did it for the first 2 films. Yep. Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. I read some of the Empire ones because my son had the book. So it's pretty cool. Pretty cool concept.
Yeah, I love them.
Just different, what everybody's doing, coming up with their own theories and little story.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's pretty damn cool stuff.
And
So,
now you can add Vecin Menez to the canon of character. Once you get an action figure, then it's a fit. Then you're in.
Oh,
then it
we need,
and you're immortalized.
No,
you got to get the figure,
and you got to encase it in carbonite, as the carbon.
Once Kevin gets the full back tat of the name and the character, then
there you go. You may have already done that. That's why he didn't get a chance to read the book, because he was too busy getting the tattoo.
Oh, I'm curious to see what this character looks like. Oh, that'd be.
Well, you just look. You're looking at him.
Okay.
This is it.
Just picture that person with a blaster.
Okay. Is he a Jedi? Is he? Well,
yeah, we're gonna find out.
Read the story.
Former trooper.
there's a good chance you're going to read it before Kevin, Eric.
Yeah.
At this rate. Kevin is, just to complete the circle, Kevin is also an Emmy-nominated producer. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that, too? Why don't you?
Yeah.
Just recently nominated for an Emmy.
Yes, and I think voting closed yesterday. So as of right now, we either won or we didn't. And the only person who knows is somebody at like PricewaterhouseCoopers. But I worked on the Better Call Saul filmmaker training animated shorts this year. And those have won 2 Emmys so far. Unfortunately, it's the only thing Better Call Saul has gotten an Emmy for.
Wow.
At all.
Really?
That's pretty cool. Last season.
That's amazing. Yeah. What a great show.
Like 42 nominations.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations.
Congratulations
That you were part of the nomination. And I think we said that at our live meetup is I think Sean Grady said it to you, is they can never take away your Emmy nominated status, even if you don't win. You are forever an Emmy nominee, Emmy nominated producer.
Like, there are these really specific rules about when you're allowed to say that, and
not until you lose.
Calendar year, basically, you can say Emmy nominee. If you win, you can say Emmy winner for the rest of your life. But then I think beyond the ceremony, it's like you can say Emmy nominated producer.
Okay, well, that works. I'll take it. So congratulations, everybody. Hopefully, cross your fingers for Kevin. He's a great guy, and he absolutely deserves
hopefully
all that success that comes.
Hopefully, Warren Beatty says the right name, Kevin.
There you go. If he says Vecin Menez, then you're ahead of the game.
It counts.
He butchered it, but at least it was close. So we're here, believe it or not, we're actually here to talk about a movie, which is Good Will Hunting, which has nothing to do with Star Wars, nothing to do with Better Call Saul. Let's get right into the stats, and then we'll dive right in. This was released in December of 1997. It was directed by Gus Van Sant, written by Matt Damon and Ben Affleck. Nominated for 9 Oscars. I forgot that it was that many that it was nominated for. I mean, this was like a high-powered film at the time, but in 97, there was also a lot of other stuff going on. It was nominated for Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actor, Best Supporting Actor, Best Supporting Actress, Best Screenplay written for the screen, Best Film Editing, Best Dramatic Score, Best Original Song. That's a lot. It won 2. It won for Best Supporting Actor for Robin Williams and Best Screenplay. So Matt Damon and Ben Affleck won first time out of the gate Oscar winners for this screenplay. It was a $10 million budget that they spent on this film. It made $225.9 million back in the box office. That is a monster return on investment. That was what the 90s, these 90s indie films were about, was once you got that buzz and the word of mouth, people just started going to see the film. It just kind of, the 90s, we've talked about it, the Bronze Age or the second golden age, whatever, of film. And that was the climate in the 90s, was these little films could just poof, as long as they got the right spark and the right word of mouth and the right amount of reviews, people just went and saw it. I did not see it in the theater, though. Kevin, did you see this in the theater?
I did. I was 14, and I was on a ski trip with my cousins.
I almost did a spit take.
Yeah. It wasn't until the February after, so it was nominated for everything by then, but hadn't won, and I was a little too young for it. And honestly, it wasn't until I was about 25 that I liked it, but it wasn't until I was older than Will that I really loved it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Christy?
I actually saw it twice in the theater.
Wow.
So, I loved it. So I was
We don't need ages.
A few years older than Kevin, so I got it. I got it right away.
It makes Eric and I feel old when Kevin said he was 14 when he saw the film.
Yeah.
But no, I saw it twice. I think it was twice. It was definitely twice, if not more, in the theater. I loved this movie from the get-go.
Cool. Eric, what about you?
Home video.
Yeah, myself as well. I think I missed it. Just kind of, if we just take just a quick look at what was going on in 1997, the big winner for the Oscars was Titanic. Like that was like the one to beat. It won 12 Oscars. You also had stuff like L.A. Confidential. Kim Basinger won for Best Supporting Actress. So Minnie Driver. These were the days when the 90s, the Oscars were stacked. It was like pound for pound every year. There was usually some tough decisions that had to be made. Like people were going to go home disappointed. It was there rarely was a clear winner, except in pretty much except for Titanic in this case. Everybody knew it was going to sail away with a lot of the winners.
But I think this film. Well, the two accolades that it did get were probably what it should have won. I mean, it's exactly what the film, everything else was, pretty much, I think, but the screenplay and Robin Williams,
really,
that's really all you.
What about Minnie Driver though?
I thought she gave a really good performance.
She was great. She was fantastic in it, but I think for me, the screenplay is what really drives the film, but we'll get to that, I'm sure.
Yeah. I mean, I was when I was looking at it and looking at all the nominations, and I saw that she was nominated, and I wanted to see, well, why didn't she win? And it was Kim Basinger, and that was kind of, L.A. Confidential was a great film, and that was almost kind of a little bit of a career award, Kevin. Like, right? They kind of do that. I mean, she was fantastic in it, and I love L.A. Confidential, but
I like the second half now. I have trouble with the first half
of L.A. Confidential.
I've got the Kevin Spacey problem.
Yeah,
you know how much I loved him.
Yeah,
and I just can't even turn on a movie with him anymore.
In one of these boxes I'm looking at, I have a playbill you got autographed from me for The Iceman Cometh.
The Iceman Cometh,
from Kevin
Spacey. Which was like the week American Beauty came out, which is I also see,
which is on my wall
represented.
Yeah, he's problematic, and actually, there's another problematic person, and it's directly associated with this film is Harvey Weinstein. So to go back, let's kind of go into the history of this. So Matt Damon was in Harvard and taking a writing class or a dramatic class, and he was supposed to submit like the first act of a play, like a 1-act play. And instead, he submitted 40 pages of a screenplay, and they were like, "Wow, you should keep doing this." So he did that. In 1994, he connects with Ben Affleck, and they kind of complete the screenplay. They get some looks at it. There's some studios that are interested in it, but not with them in the lead. They're like, "We want to, we got to be the leads in this." And like, no, they were kind of circling Brad Pitt and Leonardo DiCaprio.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, okay. Brad Pitt and Leonardo DiCaprio, they were circling for the leads, but they weren't going with it. So the studio, whichever, I forget which one had it, they put it in what's called turnaround. They're like, you know what? If you guys can't sell it if you can't get somebody else to buy into this, we're done with it, and it's just gonna lose it. Affleck and Damon were working with Kevin Smith at the time with Chasing Amy and Mallrats. They got the script in front of Kevin Smith. He absolutely loved it.
Yeah, he pushed
and
it.
They asked him to direct it, and he says, "You need a good director."
Yeah.
He said, "I don't direct this kind of stuff." So he brought it to Harvey Weinstein in 1997. Harvey Weinstein was probably the king of Hollywood, probably the most powerful man who could, again, taking out the horrible things that he did in 97. Miramax was the dominant independent film company. They were doing all that stuff, and they just were building all this power and just kind of putting out these great films. So he got it in front of Harvey Weinstein, and Harvey Weinstein went for it.
Yeah.
So
I had heard Matt Damon was recently on the Smartless podcast.
Oh, I love Smartless. No offense, this podcast.
Will Arnett and Jason Bateman and Sean Hayes, Will and Grace, and he described it a little bit different. He said that him and Affleck, they were struggling actors. They were getting roles, and they both saw the script to, I believe it was Primal Fear at the time, which went to Edward Norton, and they both tried out for the role. They thought the script was fantastic. And then they both decided to say, look, we could wait for the next great script to come down 5 years, 10 years down the road, because good scripts don't come around that often. We could either do that or we could do it ourselves. And I think that's where, they put their minds to it, and that's what they did. And, and of course, everything came, like Dean mentioned, came after, which was, floating it around, and, Kevin Smith got involved. But yeah,
they
so that was interesting
for having someone else do it,
because they were working, Matt Damon was doing a lot of theater, I think, at the time and stuff. So, I mean,
I think Rainmaker came out. Francis Ford Coppola was also was prevalent as like I thought he gave it to. Did he give it to Weinstein? Like Francis Ford Coppola? Oh, he gave it to Robin Williams, and once Robin Williams signed on, it was, and then Rainmaker came out, and they could see that Matt Damon was like a good actor,
was going to be the next big thing.
Then it started making sense. Everything
it gave it credibility, I think.
But Francis Ford Coppola, was a big part of this film getting Robin Williams and getting made.
Yeah. Yeah, and then there was a couple of directors that were attached, names like Michael Mann, which I couldn't picture. I don't know if I could picture Michael Mann handling this type of material. Maybe he could, but eventually they did decide on Gus Van Sant, who at the time and has since gone back to being an indie darling. I mean, he was Drugstore Cowboy and My Own Private Idaho and To Die For. So he was making these kind of smaller, more intimate films. And that's exactly what, people, Gus Van Sant, it's like, well, yeah, but I think this film needed that kind of, I don't want to say tenderness, but there's something to the way he Gus Van Sant kind of doesn't get in the way of things. He kind of like Eric said, the screenplay is what this is built on, and he kind of trusts it and lets it unfurl.
Yeah. It's extremely nuanced, I think. There's just very, very subtle, it's not flashy. It looks and feels very much like an indie film. And yet you have these big names attached. You have Danny Elfman doing the score. And it's just little, it kind of, you don't know how to feel about it in certain ways, but there's so many personal aspects to this screenplay that I think he probably, Gus Van Sant, I'm saying, probably recognized within the script itself. I mean, just these little, the fact that Affleck and Damon put so much of themselves and their background into the characters and where they're from and all of that kind of thing. And I think that's really what sold them on it. Just speculation, of course, but I think being that kind of a director, I could see that him being, okay, yeah, I'm going to do this,
Yeah. So. And like one of, like our friend Roland Arucci says, this is like one of those small neighborhood films. It's not a world building film. It's very small and intimate. It takes place in a very small area. Kevin, what I know, in watching it today, I noticed that the first, Robin Williams doesn't show up until almost literally 30 minutes in.
Yeah.
And in watching the first 30 minutes of the film, you almost don't know what this film is about. Because there's three different things going on. There's Matt Damon with his friends and that whole dynamic. There's him meeting Skylar, and then there's him doing these math problems, and all of them are kind of given equal attention. Like they're not leaning heavily. Like the math thing is kind of a mystery, but then they spend a lot of time with the batting cages and kind of developing the whole friends thing that when I was watching it today, I'm like, if somebody's watching this for the first time, they might not know what this is about.
No, it's slice of life is what it feels like. And it never feels like it's going to get much bigger. But what you're seeing is Will Hunting in his comfort zone and where he wants to be, where he wants to stay. So it makes sense that Sean Maguire shakes things up after Act One, almost.
Yeah,
the world
makes sense.
Built, we thought.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Of we're getting a feel just for the overall scope of the world of the quote unquote the world that he lives in. It's his buddies, it's working occasionally, and it's solving math problems, and then meeting this girl. That's a pretty interesting way to think of that. Is kind of, but it takes its time. And that was the interesting thing about it, is they're not rushing to get to these next plot points, because there are those times when they're sitting in a bar and just kind of talking or just kind of doing things. And I appreciated it on this round of watching it, because I hadn't seen it through in a while. Mm-hmm. That, it's just kind of very deliberate in its pace. It's just kind of, we don't need to get to Robin Williams right away. When we do, it's going to be enough, but kind of building up to it. And then, like I said, when he makes his entrance, it's a lot of the parallels I saw, Christy, between like the relationship also between, Matt's, Will Hunting and Chucky, who is Ben Affleck, a little bit of a mirroring of Jerry and Sean Maguire also, not to the extent, it's not overtly obvious, but there is a little bit of that. It's almost like the roles are reversed, where Chucky is like the Sean Maguire of that couple, and Matt's like the Jerry. He's kind of like, Will Hunting is like the Jerry.
Yeah,
but he wants his friend to succeed.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if we saw the Chucky side until the scene where he basically says to Will, like, if you're still living here and going to Little League games and coming over to my house to watch, the Patriots, I'll fucking kill you. And that's a fact. Like, I don't know if we saw like that role so much until that moment. But yeah, I mean, I can see that. I never really looked at it that way. To Kevin's point, I think that, and it's why it won Best Screenplay, is they take their time. It doesn't drag out. It's a writer's movie. It's very well written. It's very clever. And there's nothing like I would struggle to find a lot of places to cut if you wanted to cut like like some movies you watch and you're like, okay, you could take that scene out. Like, it's just, but they literally are building these relationships and taking the time to do it. And for a first time screenplay, it's pretty amazing. It really is. Yeah. It's like I've seen it. I watched it actually twice in preparation for this, but anytime it's on, it's like I'll watch it at any point. I'll watch it, and I'm never like bored. I'm never bored.
Yeah, you feel like you're hanging with your friends. I think that's what it is. I think everybody feels like they know people like this, have known people like this, or have hung out with people like this. These kind of
blue performances too,
like working class guys. Blue collar guys that are just kind of working, and hit the bar after work, and quote unquote real salt of the earth people.
Yeah, it feels natural, I guess, to like what you're saying, Dean. Like when they say the lines, like sometimes when you're watching a film or you're watching a series, you can see people acting. It's annoying. You know what I mean? Like you can see they're reading lines.
Yeah.
I never saw them reading lines in this.
Mm-mm. Yeah, a lot of comfort. You know what? Let me take this moment to actually go through the cast, because we haven't done that. So, Robin Williams as Sean Maguire, Matt Damon as Will Hunting, Ben Affleck, Chucky. What's Chucky's last name? Anybody know Chucky's last name?
Oh.
No. Anybody know Chucky's last name? Kevin's like, wow, I'm stumped.
They say it.
I don't think they ever say it.
I don't think
Chucky Sullivan.
You don't even.
That makes sense. It's very Irish, of course.
Chucky Sullivan.
You don't even know Chucky's name until Sean says it, like 2/3 of the way in.
Yeah, you're right.
Yep. And then you've got Stellan Skarsgård, the great Stellan Skarsgård.
Oh my God,
I'll shake the man loose. As Professor Gerald Lambeau, Minnie Driver as Skylar. She has no last name. Casey Affleck as Morgan O'Malley. Cole Hauser as Billy McBride. That rounds out like the crew.
They're not brothers in the movie.
They're not brothers in the movie.
They're not.
I forgot about that. Yeah.
Morgan. We'll put you on a plan.
Yeah.
You bring your 6 cents each week, and at the end of the week, you get your burger.
Layaway payment. By the way, can I ask?
Burger. Hang on, I want to go through the just a couple more. Okay. This guy named John Mighton, Mighton, as Tom.
I have so many questions about Tom.
I want to talk about Tom.
I had to look this guy up.
So did I. He hasn't done it. He's a math teacher now or something.
Exactly. Well, no, he's a mathematician. He's not an actor, which explains a lot. Because he's like the toady. He's like Lambeau's toady. Like, oh, it's okay. You know, people get lucky, and it's just like he's so pandering, right?
So jealous of
he's just like he's like a toady. He's like a lapdog. You know, he's like
just there.
He's always
there's something going on there too.
This is Dr. Gerald. This is Gerald Lambeau. Well, you
could see when the scenes where him and Will are going at it, and they're laughing, and and you see him sitting in the corner, like, he's obviously jealous.
Of course.
You know,
so Tom's actually in love with Professor Lambeau. Like that's obvious.
But so he's actually a mathematician. He's not an actor, which kind of, so I guess maybe they just he might have been a consultant. I don't know if he was a consultant on the film, but he's kind of if you want to say like who feels like they're acting, it's that guy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he's kind of like the odd man out just because the character is just so weird, or because this guy's lack of experience.
Weird, it doesn't feel like he's acting. He's
like that weird. Yeah, it's like that weird hanger on to like the guy that's really famous, right?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, like 20 minutes after your house party ends and you're like cleaning up a little bit, you look over and Tom's there.
There's Tom.
Yeah. There.
It's okay. Everyone else left.
Okay.
Now it's just us here. Yeah, it's so strange. But
he reminds me of a guy. I can't think of the actor's name now in Arrested Development. He plays the brother.
Oh yeah, what's his name?
Who lost his hand? Tony Hale. Yeah. He kind of resembles him a little bit. I actually thought it was him.
Except Tony Hale's a really good actor.
Yeah. After not seeing this film for quite some time, I thought, is that what, but it's not, it's not.
Yeah,
I could see that. I could see that, Eric.
Mm-hmm.
I put in my notes, I wrote Tom the Toady. Actually not an actor, but a mathematician.
I actually just wrote we have to talk about Tom.
Yeah, we needed to talk about.
But the thing of it is too, it's like you would think if he's a mathematician that he would have brought a little bit more, but
maybe that's the way mathematicians really are.
Well, I guess so, maybe so. But the only thing he says is when he looks at the problem, he's like, "It looks right."
Yeah,
it looks right. Yeah,
looks
right. Do you know how to tell when a mathematician is an extrovert?
No.
When he talks to you, he looks at your shoes.
Very good. Very good.
All right.
They are like that, yes.
So yeah. I don't think that we're going to get a lot of mathematicians digging this episode right now.
You never know. I don't know if they listen.
Hey, we're not digging on anybody. We're just digging on this dude. Just his performance in the film.
So he's kind of the adjunct to Gerald Lambeau, who. I noticed in the very first scene of the film is actually obviously Will is working on the chalkboard on the problem, and then the first scene proper is the problem was solved, and it's Gerald Lambeau's class, and you could see that the difference between his opening scene as a teacher and Sean McGuire's opening scene as a teacher. That there's that contrast pretty much tells you everything you need to know about the teachers and about their personalities in the setting of them in the classroom, right? Gerald Lambeau said, he's in one of those big lecture halls. He comes in, he's wearing a scarf. He's like a rock star. And, the gauntlet has been laid down, kind sir. He's so dramatic. He
has the Fields Medal.
Yeah.
The Fields Medal.
The Fields Medal. The Fields Medal.
Which again is like, you could say that the entire student body, the students are, more or less toadies as well, because they have to know. They're like, this guy's looking up to this guy. All the girls are, like, ooh, could we ask you some questions? And he's loving it.
Like, not unless you're free for dinner tonight.
Have the drink.
Creep.
Yeah.
Well, I wrote this down because also
she was of college age, so inappropriate, yes, but not illegal.
But there's
grad school even.
But all she wanted to know who was the guy that solved it, and he's just like, "Oh, I'll tell you later," you know.
But at Harvard, there's a theme because Minnie Driver, when Will calls her and doesn't say anything, she's like, "Professor Valenti, is this you? Are you calling me again?" It's like, what's with the professors, man? I mean,
they're like lectures.
Yeah, like this.
It's not making Harvard look good, is it? You know, and perhaps that's
the most real people are the.
Well, that's the thing. Maybe there's some truth to it because Matt Damon went to Harvard.
Truth to it. Yeah,
he went to Harvard. He didn't finish. Apparently, he went for 5 years. Apparently, and he didn't finish because he just got into acting. and stuff, and dropped out.
It makes a fantastic contrast between Sean, who's teaching at like a community college.
Yeah.
And the really great thing about Robin Williams in this film is that he is restrained. Robin Williams, like that could have been a disaster where if they had, I don't know whose decision it was. I hope it was Robin Williams to not bring out the impressions and the manic part. It's there a little bit. It's there enough to make the character real. It's not the over the top genie of the lamp type performance that we could have gotten, or the stuff that he was doing, Mrs. Doubtfire. He was doing a lot of over the top stuff there. And to have such a performance that is restrained for him is...
Well, I actually prefer him in roles like that. I mean, look at him in Awakenings too. I mean, that was a fantastic performance, him and De Niro. I always preferred the serious Robin Williams, to be honest. I never really dug...
trained actor. Yeah.
I really never dug his stand-up. I never, it was a little too zany, a little too goofy. But boy, could that man act? I mean, he was just
Insomnia,
force of nature.
I was going to bring up Insomnia.
Yeah,
Christopher Nolan. So I think Robin Williams was the revelation in this film because he's so restrained and just so. The yin to the yang of Jerry. They have just like Chucky and Will, and maybe that's what I was getting at. Have this codependent relationship. Even though Gerald doesn't want to admit it, he's got this codependent relationship with Sean because if there's a point later in the movie is where Sean is saying to him, like, don't forget, I knew you before the Fields Medal, when you were just a snot-nosed kid or didn't know which side of the bed to piss on, So there's that, I think there's that, as much like parents that bicker and fight. There's that surrogate parental thing too towards the end when they're fighting over him in the office at the very, when Will comes in. So there's a lot of different layers, to what is going on here between the relationships that Will has, the relationship between Sean and Jerry, which is combative, but they always circle back to like their mutual respect or their friendship kind of trumps everything, no matter if they bicker. They had the argument in the bar about him, about Will. What that leads up to the scene where Chucky's at McNeil. Pretending to be Will. With
his tube socks on?
With tube socks on.
As arrogant as Jerry is, and he's always, but his intentions are good. He wants the kid to succeed. He wanted Sean to succeed. He wanted him to take a different path. He could have taken a much more, higher level path, but he chose to do what he did. And, that, of course, caused some, but perhaps he was just, Sean was his protege at the time or whatever, just like now he sees another opportunity with Will. So he's trying to, but it's just like you say, Dean, it's just amazing, those layers of just conflict and who's right, who's wrong. It doesn't really matter, I don't think, but it's just, I think interesting. It's just you're so involved in the conversation, in the arguments.
Then Bo says to Sean, he goes, "You were smarter than me then, and you're smarter than me now."
Yeah,
but so he.
But he says it so condescendingly, though.
Exactly, he's clearly disappointed in him, because he chose to be, a teacher of psychology,
Yeah, and that's the interesting part. Is Jerry, Kevin, is very passive aggressive. Right, you're smarter than me now, and you're smarter than me then. Like, and then he brings up the Fields Medal, and he always tries to gaslight Robin Williams' character. He's always trying to make him feel like he's less than. And I wrote down, and to Eric's point, right, Jerry's notion of success versus Sean's notion of success.
Yes.
And Jerry's notion of success is being successful and renowned, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sean's notion of success is just being happy, doing what makes you happy.
Yeah.
And I think that's what it comes down to, and that's how Will is being pulled.
Yeah.
Yeah, Sean wants to do as many good things as he can for as many other people as he can. You see how he engages with 8 students in his class in the space of 30 seconds. Jerry wants to do whatever he can for himself. And he doesn't want Will to succeed. He wants Will to bolster himself, and he wants to get something published.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's kind of looking to ride his coattails a little bit.
So Kevin, he
recognizes the brilliance.
Kevin, do you find sincerity in when Jerry, when Will tells him that he sent one of his associates to the meeting, and Jerry's like, "Look, I'm just setting him up for you. I'll give you a job myself." And then when Will gets pissed off and says, easy this is for me, like watching you fumble, and when Jerry's like, when he says to me, then I wouldn't have to watch you throw it all away.
Yeah.
Do you find the sincerity in that? Even in his awkward, condescending way of just his personality, that do you not think that he sees the potential in Will and wants him to surpass him because he acknowledges he's smarter than him?
I don't think it's that, because when he talks about the meeting, it's about, well, crap, I gave my endorsement when I set up that interview.
Reflects poorly on me.
Yeah.
It's not, oh, you just screwed yourself out of a good job. And with the potential thing, it's like when you see somebody in a $400,000 car and they're grinding the gears going down the street, and you're like, you don't deserve that car. I know how to drive that.
Yeah.
I should be the one to have it. But that's the person who could afford to buy it.
Yep.
Yeah. That's a great analogy. But but to Christy's point, though, I see it's clear that he knows that Will is smart, and he sees the brilliance in him, and he knows that he is the new genius, that he's even smarter than he is. And I think at this point, riding those coattails, it's going to give him that, well, I found this kid, I pushed him along. But I think there is a level of sincerity there. I think that, deep down, I think he does really want him to succeed, and it pains him to see him. That scene was great because you could interpret it a couple of ways, I suppose, like just what we're talking about. I mean, I think there's sincerity there.
I do too.
But notice that he says it only after Will leaves the room.
Yeah. Well, because he doesn't want him to know that he's being sincere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Sincerity is weakness to him.
Yeah. And again, Jerry has seen his friend, make choices that Jerry doesn't agree with. Right. So again, this is like a second chance, at glory of, the lost potential of Sean, who he has nothing to do with. They weren't in the same, same field or anything, but he saw that kind of throwaway. Here's an interesting thought. While you guys were talking about Jerry and his motives, why? This is questions for anybody who wants to take a crack at it. Why was it so important for him to be in the office during therapy? Because he would know he's not supposed to be. But with those first 3 therapists or 2 therapists, they were in the office, like overseeing that.
Mm-hmm.
Why did the psychiatrist allow that? Because Sean was like, no, you guys, got to leave. This is private.
And Tom was there too.
Yeah, and Tom's sitting there too. Afternoon delight.
He's the first one to go. You're out. Get out of here.
Well, it's
actually, that's what Jerry did. Is Tom, excuse us, and Sean's like, no, both of yous go.
Yeah,
because Jerry's ego and narcissism is so high that he would not believe for a second that he is not entitled to be there.
Very. Yeah.
It's just
another level of narcissism. You're saying?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
I
totally agree.
Occur to him? Would even occur to him?
He's on the level to be privy to his private. Yeah.
I'm Will's savior. I'm going to be there for the entire journey.
Yeah, every step of the way. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Yeah, and it's not even about Will healing. It's about like, okay, can you sign the form now so we can go back to the math?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, he was just trying to get these guys to rubber stamp him. The great George Plimpton. No more ballyhoo. No more shenanigans.
I wrote down ballyhoo because I wanted to talk. I wanted someone to say ballyhoo.
What are you doing?
Apart from the rough? What are you talking about?
You were just about to jump me 5 minutes ago.
Oh my God.
No more ballyhoo. No more shenanigans.
Look, I don't have time for this. This lunatic.
Yeah, it was.
Oh my God.
They really kind of and then when he gets to the second hypnotist, you actually think there's going to be a breakthrough because he's getting hypnotized and it's like, oh, he's touching me down there, and then not susceptible to be hypnotized either. Apparently,
Well, he's you love every moment of that. You love every time he shows these people up, but when he gets in the hands of Sean, and Sean turns it around on him. Oh my God. What a great moment when he starts talking about the painting and it's a paint by numbers, like kind of thing,
Yeah.
And then he gives him that, I had a dream and I didn't think about you since, that whole speech.
Yeah, but that was a perfect example of Will's skill and Will's intellect is what he kept doing because he kept I relate this to, I related this to our Jurassic Park episode, Eric, when they said when the guy said the raptors were testing the fences.
Yeah.
Right. This is exactly what Will was doing. He kept on testing the fences of Sean. Talked about the books that didn't work. Yeah, whatever. I had to read them. He just kept on like, oh well, these are the wrong fucking books. Like he kept on testing different things to find the chink in Sean's armor, and then he finally did. Like that whole scene was just Will just kind of, they were like verbally jousting, and Robin, Sean just kept on parrying as a medical professional of just kind of trying to recenter him, but Will just kept on going to different things until he found the thing that would trigger him. And I think he kind of gets off like he's so smart that's all he can live for is just kind of everybody else is boring to him. So if he meets somebody that's a challenge, well, I got to figure out what their weak point is.
And Sean made match for match, though until he loses it. That was the moment when he kind of he struck a nerve. And Will knew it even after that little exchange. Will had that sort of smug look on his face, like, oh, I got you.
But he was right. You know what? And I thought about that. I thought about that whole scene because usually you think, oh, okay, I think Will was actually right though. He was right about what he said about the painting because the very next scene was Sean at home, and the very scene after the very first thing we see after that scene is a sink full of dishes that were unwashed. So someone who's not
and an empty whiskey bottle.
So someone who's not taking care of themselves, not doing
drinking Protestant whiskey.
Someone that's not doing the basics to take care of themselves. So on the outside, he looks like he's got it together. He's teaching and doing all those things, but. I really kind of when I watched it and watched what the next scene was, I'm like, yeah, this is he looks like he's got it together, but he's sitting there, but he's in a unkempt house and just kind of sitting with himself, and that was a great monologue that he had after that about, how could I know about you because I read Oliver Twist. And most of that was one shot that a lot of that was done with the camera never cut away. So brilliant.
I wonder how much he improvised though on that. How much of that was actually written?
I actually read there was a lot of improvising going on with Robin Williams. Almost all of Casey Affleck was improvised.
Oh, really? Okay.
His stuff was much better than what was written for him. I read. Which
Did he really swallow a bug?
Well, that's from the documentary from Apocalypse Now. I think Brando says it.
Heart of Darkness?
Yeah. He does say that.
He
said it.
Yeah.
And it was, and I guess again going back to Coppola having some hand in this, but no, Casey Affleck, who I love in this movie, he improvised a lot of it. But I think I read somewhere that so did Robin Williams. He improvised the very last line of the movie, which Matt Damon said was the best line.
Yeah.
Bless you.
Yeah.
Took my line, stole my line. Let's move on to. I think we need to move on to Skylar.
Yep.
Because she is the other most important part of this is, and what I wrote down is that Will has uncontrolled, like Will is subject to bouts of uncontrolled rage, as we saw with the fight scene, and actually their pinnacle scene when they kind of break up. I think he represents like uncontrolled rage, and she represents uncontrolled love and openness. She immediately opens herself to him, even with his flaws. She knows that he's full of shit with some of these things, but she still is open to him, still open to the, with no questions asked and not expecting anything, and all these things, it's almost like a perfect storm of all these things are happening to Will at the same time, that he meets Skylar, who's really open and understanding and loving. And he meets Sean, who's like probably the first adult that he feels trust with, right? Because he, when he threw Jerry out of the room, it's like, no, this is our safe space, and then his relationship with his friends, he's kind of getting pushed to the middle from all sides. But Minnie Driver was just like really laid it on the line. I mean, she really just kind of is just an open book as a character, just kind of fun loving, not, can go toe to toe with the guys, in the bar scene, but it's just, she's just such a, like a breath of fresh air into his life that he almost doesn't know how to handle it.
This is a theme we have also, where we consistently do a film.
Yes, I knew you were going to say that.
One woman, really.
Most films only have one woman in them.
I love Minnie Driver,
except for Charlie's Angels.
I love Minnie Driver in this movie,
and Ocean's 8.
I think she does a remarkable job. Like
she's so good.
If she had won Best Supporting Actress, I will tell you today, I would be like, she deserved it.
Yeah, she certainly did deserve the nomination. I'm not.
Yeah.
She was fun. I thought she was so natural. She played off of, like you said, Dean. Like if he's rage and she's love, she played off of him perfectly. Mm-hmm. I mean, it probably didn't hurt that they developed a relationship, so there was some natural chemistry going on there, like real intimacy happening between them as they're before he breaks up with her on Oprah. But no one remembers that. He like she didn't know they broke up. I think it was like an Oprah or something. And he was like, "Yeah, I'm single," and they apparently were dating. But Minnie Driver, she's absolutely amazing in this film.
Yeah,
I can't think of a sadder breakup scene.
Oh, it's like so intense.
Realer breakup scene intense. Because he doesn't even. He just says the one thing that will hurt her more than anything possibly else, and he doesn't mean it, but he just wants.
And his excuses are the lamest too. It's like, well, I have a job and I live here, and that's something that someone would like. That's looking for someone that doesn't have any real reasons. That's something that I live here, so I'm not going to go with you. It's like the reasons were so baseless that she was like, I can't believe that's what you're saying.
But like, I have movie tickets for Tuesday. I can't. Sorry.
Well, but he also gives the same excuses to Sean, doesn't he? Like he's like, "What's the matter with laying brick?" Like I could. He goes, "You could be anything you want to be." Yeah, my father laid brick so that he could send me to school because he wants me to be better than that. So you could be anything, and you want to just lay brick. And it pissed Sean off. He succeeded in that too. He with his lame with your bullshit. Get out of my office. Like, why? He did the same thing to him.
But I think this goes back to, at the very beginning, something I think it was Kevin said, is he wants to stay in his comfort zone.
Yeah, of course.
So he knows laying brick. He knows this job. He knows where he lives, his friends. The scariest thing for someone like that to do is to step away from everything they know. So I think that that's why he comes up with all these BS excuses for everything. It's just,
well, it's clear. I mean, he is afraid. He's afraid of loving, because he obviously didn't get that love growing up. That was that eventually comes to light in the film. I mean, as it plays out, I mean, he gets that out of him, and then it just takes on a whole different route, right? I mean, it's just like, wow, okay, now.
Yeah,
I understand.
And his friends don't really demand that from him either. His friends don't demand like they don't have that kind of relationship. They have a drinking relationship, and they hang out and they get into trouble and they get into fights. So he's never been, nothing's ever been asked of him or demanded of him, right? Or to be held accountable to anything. It's just kind of like, Will's one of the guys, but he's really super smart, and but Chucky realizes that, you think, oh, these guys would be happy just to have Will hanging around. But at the end, Chucky's like, he even eventually, like we said, I think Christy said, eventually even his friends chime in, like, what are you doing? Like, this is an insult to the people that have to do this.
Mm-hmm.
You might think it's, you're doing whatever, but he goes, everybody would kill to have what you got.
Will says to Chucky during that conversation, he's like, not you too.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to give me shit too. Like, because it's like, now you're going to turn on me. Like, he doesn't.
When Chucky says, it punches me right in the gut every time. And I of course, emotional, I tear up, but he says, he's like, no, fuck you. You owe it to me.
Yeah.
That gets me every time when he says that line. It's just so, the way it comes out. I mean, it's like a slap in the face, and it's just, wow. Yeah.
It has nothing to do with it, but that scene, can we acknowledge that Ben Affleck has a completely different haircut from the entire movie in that scene?
Yeah.
I didn't notice.
You didn't notice that? It's so noticeable.
No. I
was
looking at the beer, trying to see what kind of beer they were drinking.
Like a pompadour or whatever it's called. Yeah. Like, he's got a poof. And then in that one, it's like, was he filming Armageddon? Because it's like almost like his Armageddon hair.
No, he didn't have a buzz
or like
cut.
They did that first. He got a haircut and then shot the rest of it.
That is definitely, there's a lot of time passed.
He wasn't Armageddon Ben Affleck yet. He was still young. He was chasing
When did
Amy
Armageddon come out?
Well,
that was later.
Yeah, but isn't that scene?
Not much.
But wasn't that scene to show that there was a slight passage of time because she left and they broke up? So
because in the last scene, when he walks to the door, I think he has his hair again.
His hair is high and tight. Yeah,
his hair is high and tight.
High and tight. Chucky, with his running outfit, his jogging outfits,
and the chain,
his basketball pants.
Chucky.
Armageddon
Christy,
was 98.
can you guess what bugs me most? And it's a scene in the yard outside of Will's door. What bugs me most about the whole movie? Just knowing what you know of me.
What bugs you most?
It has nothing to do with like the content or the story.
It's in the yard?
Yeah. So when the credits for written by Matt Damon and Ben Affleck come up, the names are over the wrong guy.
Oh, okay.
It drives me out of my mind.
That's called a peccadillo. That's called a nitpick.
But no, it's a valid
knowing
point.
What you know about me.
If someone doesn't know who Matt Damon is or Ben Affleck, then
but it wasn't meant to be. It wasn't meant to position it over them, though. That was that was a happenstance.
It puts me on movie posters too, and I know it's like contractual.
Well, I really didn't know what you were getting at because you were talking about the yard, and you were like, "What's in the yard that annoys him in the yard?"
I thought it was going
to say walking.
Is it the trash or is it the car? Like, let's just like sit there. Okay.
I thought he was going to say the way that Chucky stacked the Dunkin' Donuts cups, like one on top of each other. I thought that's what he was going to say. Like, oh, how can he drink out of it? The other one was the bottom was touching the top.
If you want to nitpick, and this is dealing with the yard, the last scene when he beeps to horn, he gets out of the car, and all the other times he picks up Will, he never gets out of the car. He just waits in the car, and Will comes out. It wasn't like it was that long.
He had coffee this time. He had coffee for him. So he's bringing the coffee to the door.
The first scene,
it was a little,
Did he? He banged on the door.
Well, that's right. Yes, he did get out of the car.
He banged on the door in the beginning.
Did he?
To get him, yeah.
Also, like, when he looks in the window and sees that Will's not there, how does he even know? Because, like, there was no furniture.
Well, the books are
That's the way it looked anyway. It was like it was like Val Kilmer's apartment in Heat.
Well, the books, and I think
it wasn't Val Kilmer's. Robert De Niro's apartment.
That was De Niro's apartment.
Well, I think everything was kind of like rolled up and
time.
stacked up. It looked like he had.
There were no books. Yeah.
Yeah,
he just tell.
Michael Mann could have directed it. You got to be 30 seconds or less, or flat. You got to be out.
There you go.
No looking back.
I just one side note. I think Eric mentioned Danny Elfman. This is the most un-Danny Elfman-like score, especially for the stuff he was doing at the time.
That's one of my favorites.
Very restrained, and that's what this movie needed. That it needed to let the characters and the actors kind of breathe within it. It didn't need someone pushing style over substance because the substance was there. This did not need to be a stylish film, and it's not. It's very, like Kevin said, very slice of life feeling. You know, the scenes inside the car when they're driving, and you get those intimate moments, and we've all had that when, people got food. Hey, give me my burger and that kind of stuff. So those, those scenes really are kind of the glue that hold the bigger ones together, right? Because those are those little world building moments that we get to see how they interact with each other, and we get to see, a little more in depth, and like the dog racing scene with Skylar and Will, where she's like, oh, how many, trying to find out about him, and he's still so guarded. He still won't let anything through, and it's nice to see that that slow. It takes a while, but that slow breakdown.
The dog scene I read years ago. I don't know if it's true or not.
Mikey, Mickey, Tommy, Chucky, Charlie, Betty.
That
and Brian.
It was a real. It was a real dog race, and her dog really won. So her reaction was genuine.
There you go.
I don't know if it's true or not, but I read that years ago. I couldn't find it to validate it. Just because we brought
that dog's name was Santa's Little Helper.
It was Veckin Menace.
Simpsons reference there.
Veckin Menace.
The scene, one of my favorite scenes is followed by my least favorite scene.
Okay.
Kevin,
do you dislike the scene in the joke shop?
No. I have very strong feelings about the scene of them fighting in the schoolyard. Did no one watch the dailies that day? With the slow-mo, with Casey Affleck's face?
I love that.
But he's pretending to be slow-mo, isn't he? Like, I don't think it's actually shot. I don't think it's an overcrank. Like, I think he's just going.
You're probably right. Yeah.
But it's annoying. Like that whole scene, like just whether they're acting in slow motion or they're slowing up the film, I don't know what they're doing. Right. But the scene before it is probably one of my favorite scenes in the movie because I love the chemistry.
When they're at the baseball field?
No, when they're in the car and he's like, we're going to put it on layaway. And then you can, because Casey Affleck in that, when he's like, double burger, and he starts singing it and knowing that he probably improvised all of this. Mm-hmm. And then when he's like, I don't want to fight now. We got snacks now. When is a double burger a snack?
For them. Second lunch.
And I wonder if Ben like improvised the response too, or he goes, "Shut the fuck up already!" When he starts going on it, that's brother to brother right there. That's
that is absolutely one of my favorite scenes in the film. And then right after it, I'm just like, the slow. I don't know what they're doing. Like,
I liked the choice of having the fight in slow motion.
Casey Affleck's face in that though, like it's just.
I agree.
Drives me insane. Takes me out of the film. Like when that happens, like he's like, "What are you doing?"
He's punching and he's moving backwards at the same time. He's like,
it's just bizarre.
He's trying to. It's almost like they're trying to create a forced perspective it's almost like the point of view of the guy's face as his face is getting hit and moving backwards. Like that's what you see.
It's clear he's never been in a fight before or ever hit another.
Gus Van Sant is not an action director, so you kind of have to go with, he probably played to his strengths and said, let's do this. Let's do it in slow motion. You can it's a lot more forgiving because you don't have to have choreography that looks realistic. It can be you can kind of fake it till you make it with that. So
I'll forgive it. I'll just forgive the whole scene because of the needle drop choice. So
Baker Street
by Jerry Rafferty.
Very odd choice because there's not a lot of other music in the movie that's not score.
It's
Elliott
other than the 4 Elliott Smith songs.
Yeah, so
it's like a lot of stuff on the radio.
Yeah, it kind of pops up out of nowhere. All of a sudden, you're listening to Baker Street.
Yeah, because it's playing in the car.
And then, of course, at the end, the best is Afternoon Delight. Come on. The car going. I mean, what a great callback to
inspired Anchorman.
Probably happens.
But that's the thing. It's like he was just, you could totally forget about that scene, everything that happens after that. And then they go back to that song and reference it.
They probably had to license it. And then it was
brilliant. Yeah.
Well, we paid for it.
Yeah, may as well use it anyway. Yeah.
Play it. Yeah.
That's
Kevin,
that's the producer in you talking, Kevin.
Yeah.
We already paid for it, so we may as well use it as much as possible.
Kevin, you didn't like the toy store scene?
Not really.
I like Minnie Driver in that. I like Minnie Driver in that scene.
She's fun in that scene. Yeah,
she's great. In every
she's
scene,
like, I always wanted blue eyeshadow.
Blue eyeshadow.
And she talks to the woman.
Yeah, no, I mean Minnie Driver, we can't say enough about. She's just great in every scene. Like Christy said, she's so genuine, so likable, and so.
She's just light.
So real. She's so open.
Lot of light. She adds lightness to the film.
She's very open. She's very open. A very open character, and then. You get the scene at the end where if you're not crying at the end when where he says it's not your fault and Will's kind of like I get it and he's kind of it's not your fault. Like, man, I know, and he says it again and Will kind of laughs. It kind of cracks a half a smile. He's like, yeah, I know. Like he's much like Will was testing the fences of Sean in the beginning. Sean is now doing that to Will. He's gonna keep pushing that. Because I think he figured out. Well, that's where the chink in his armor is, right? Is that because I just need to proceed carefully, but keep pushing it, to get that breakthrough. So much like and Sean's testing of Will's fences took a lot longer. Will was able to kind of pull Sean apart pretty quick, but it was much more satisfying the way Sean kind of got through to him and opened him up, and then. Kind of got him in the position where he can finally be vulnerable, and again, like I said earlier, it's that coming from all those directions, coming from Chucky, and coming from and his conflict with Skylar, just all of it just kind of bubbles up right into this. He's got nothing else to do but to let it go. Finally, like he can't. It's not like it was uncontrollable rage, but it was just all this stuff was just there. All at the same time. And
and it's interesting to know too, like the sessions, as you go through the session, you would think, okay, in a lesser, written script, you might see that progression of like, all the conflict is in the beginning. And then with each session, they just become friends and they do that. But right up until the end, there's conflict. I mean, they're still going at it. They're still pushing buttons. Right before that, it was the scene where Sean kicks him out of the office. So it's like there is still that tension there, and that But Sean, at this point, he freaking knows Will pretty well at this point, and that shows the brilliance of him and how, it's not said. He's saying it to Jerry when Jerry is like, oh, it's whatever. That's when it all comes out. He's like, but you push him, you can't push him, and he's not ready, and. All this stuff, but all that he was keeping inside. You never knew exactly how much he did know and how much
mathematical dick.
Yeah, and you know what, Eric? To your point, doesn't when Sean is kicking him out of the office, doesn't Will say, "Hey, I thought we were friends."
Yeah.
Right? Doesn't he say? Because he figured, okay, this is no longer a patient thing. This is now a guy that I'm friendly with and can hang out and Sean's like, no, you're going to continue to be challenged on these things. Like
that's
we're not,
right. Yeah, he doesn't let up.
Well, yeah, he's right. He's like, yeah, I thought we were friends, and it's like, well, we still have work to do, and if you're still not going to be open, get the fuck out.
Mm-hmm.
There's something Sean does twice that says a lot about him, and one is that Will starts to thank him And he just says, "You're welcome." He doesn't force himself to sit there and listen to Will find the words. He knows what he's going to say. And then right after that, he doesn't make Jerry apologize to him. Jerry starts to apologize and he says it's okay. Because he doesn't need to hear the words. He knows the person means it.
Yeah.
It's just
he's confident. He has confidence in himself.
Yeah.
And I think that's what
I think it's compassion also.
Yeah. Well, he has these things that Jerry and Will, they don't have, right? Like this like he could just maybe not so much Will gets it towards the end, but humanity, right? Like this just, and probably from watching his wife die and understanding the importance of things. Like I think Sean, like I don't need to hear it. I know. Like I don't.
It's empathy.
Yeah, it's empathy.
I'm not going to make you say it.
Right.
Yeah.
It's that he's very genuine. He's very, inside. But again, it also speaks to how the brilliance of him, the intuitiveness of him, and how he could pick these things. Even after the first encounter, after all that stuff he said about his wife, he goes, "Oh, I'm sorry. I'll find another therapist." And he's like, "No, I want to bring him back on board."
Because I think also that he realized that he opened up. It was as much therapy for Sean as it was for Will.
Yes,
I mean, that's pretty obvious. Like that. That this was the almost the self therapy, or he needed this person, or he didn't know he needed this person that was going to challenge him. Usually the patients don't do that, right? He's like, let me do my job. Come sit down now. And Will, because they were so similar. And Will was able to turn those things back on him, right? Yeah, this way you can go through your whole life without ever really knowing anybody. Time's up. So it was a lot of verbal sparring there.
Yeah.
Well, Dean, 100%, because if you look at the end, Sean finally he's going to go to India, somewhere else, and then Baltimore.
And he's going to live again.
He's going to live again, and then Will follows Sean's lead, and when faced to, do I want the job, the safe job with the NSA and get good bank, as Chucky would say, or do I go after the girl? He follows Sean's lead on that. So yeah, it wasn't just Will's therapy.
It's pretty amazing that McNeil would hire him after the first interview.
You're suspect.
With your position would heretofore be improved if I had $200.
With his with the white socks and the deck shoes.
You're suspect, all of you. Our business heretofore is concluded. My God. Keep your nose to the grind. Keep your ear to the grindstone.
Yeah, as he slaps the dollars, the bills.
Retainer.
Oh,
the guy's like, I think I have 60. They're like shaking him down. It's one of what I'm not a big fan of Affleck in this film because he kind of overplays it a little bit, but there was some good notes and like that Chucky scene was one of the good ones. And like Eric said, the scene at the end, when they're at the job site.
What's interesting though is to me like the dick in the bar, like the Harvard guy giving Affleck shit. And Affleck doesn't know how to handle this guy, Will has to come in and step in and kind of, so how the hell did he, find the courage to go to this interview and say all the things that he said there with these, these professional people?
Damn.
Like what happened there? When did he get
that was
moxie
more of a lark, right? That was more of like, that, go do this, and go.
Yeah, because he knew Will didn't really want the job. Yeah. So it was just like Dean said.
So it didn't matter what he's, okay.
Yeah. When they're in the Harvard bar, I do love Ben Affleck. And he's always hit or miss. Ben Affleck with acting. I think he's a much better supporting actor than the lead actor. Like I love him in Argo. He's The Town. I like him, when he's in supporting roles. But when he's walking over to Skylar and them, and he's walking by, and he's like he's like pretending he knows someone. He's like,
I thought he was looking in the mirror. I thought he was kind of like,
I don't know what he's looking at.
Kind of checking his look in the mirror.
It was just a little subtle thing he did, and I just love when he does that. And Eric, I think that when he's dealing with the 12 Monkeys guy, I forgot his name, but like he can't compete with him. Like he knows the guy's
he's out of his depth,
and he's got Will right behind him. So what does he have to?
My boy's my boy's wicked smart,
just like Casey Affleck says, my boy's wicked smart.
Yeah. And then the great Cole Hauser. Let's talk about that's a great scene too with the car. Like it's a good car. That's all he needs to say, man. That was like one of my favorite lines. He's like, good engine, good car.
Throughout that whole movie, he's got no tolerance for Morgan. Like Morgan is like the fly in the ointment for him because he's constantly, he's trying to tell a story here. He's like, well, just shut up. You already heard it. It's kind of like that whole with the cruiser story. And when they're in the car, he's always looking at Morgan like side eye. He's like always annoyed by him.
No tolerance. But before we start getting into towards the end of this, I just have to say, and sure. None of you were smokers. In 1997, I was still a smoker. I will tell you.
Okay. That you have that verified that none of us were smokers?
Well, I know that you weren't.
You have the Surgeon General's. You have the Surgeon General's report.
I'm quite certain Kevin wasn't smoking.
Every coop.
I don't know if
I wasn't an avid smoker, but I have.
So
smoked.
I was a smoker, and the person I went to see this movie with twice, she wasn't a big smoker, but when you watch this movie, it's one of those movies. Matt Damon is a really good smoker.
Yeah,
he would make you want a cigarette if you were a smoker, and
okay.
I'm just telling you, it was like a thing. Like when you'd watch the movie, you'd be like, you'd be in the theater, like I want a fucking cigarette. You just wanted to smoke every time you saw Matt Damon smoking.
Don Johnson did that for me in the early, fucking Miami Vice when he was smoking like a chimney in that show. One right after the other, and he would drink his whiskey from a shot glass and just sip it.
Eric has a white suit with a pink shirt.
I did.
Of course I did. Still has it.
No, I took it was the early 90s that I think I smoked for about a year.
There you go.
And
see that?
So because of but you're right. There are certain people who just make it look so cool.
They just make
Bogart too.
Bogart's a good smoker. They're just good smokers.
Yeah.
And then you get people like Tom Cruise, and you're like, please don't do that.
Why? What movie did he smoke in?
Didn't he? The Outsiders. Didn't he smoke in The Outsiders?
Oh, I don't know if that counts.
And then he shouldn't drink either.
He was too young.
Pull it off that well.
What movie did he drink in? That was a problem.
Vanilla Sky. He got wasted in Vanilla Sky.
Okay.
Yeah, and he just his version of drunk is he just tilts his head a little.
See, Kevin knows.
They could have just done the Dutch angle on him. Then it would have been easier.
He should just run whenever he's.
I thought he was pretty good in Jerry Maguire when he was.
Yeah, he was good as drunk there.
Yeah,
and he was good as a drunk. He was good drunk in Few Good Men. He was good there. He was good as a drunk.
I love A Few Good Men. I don't know if
so. Then
good,
there you go. Case closed. Right, well, Tom Cruise is a good drunk, and he's a fantastic runner.
He's a fantastic runner.
He runs like no one else. All right. So as we wind down, as we are wanted to do on our movie episodes, we'll go around with a favorite scene or two. And why don't we kick it off with Mr. Kevin Howard?
I mean, it's the two tearjerkers. It's the breakup, and it's not your fault. But I think the other thread in this movie is, and it usually involves a Skylar scene, is Elliott Smith's music, which is just magical in this movie. And unfortunately, the Oscar nomination may have led to his downfall. Because it just put him into a limelight. It put Elliott Smith into a limelight he just wasn't ready for. And it was 6 or 7 years later he died.
Yeah.
And I think the people around him kind of blamed the fame and the just being around alcohol and parties. But what a beautiful thread just throughout all the movie. And I mean, you rarely hear Elliott Smith on the radio, but you might hear it on FUV or a college station, and it's forever associated with this movie.
Takes you back. Yeah. And this was a time, like I said, the 90s were like one of the last great decades for movies. You don't see, and that's because of streaming and because of the splintering of how we consume this stuff. movies, unless it's Barbie or something gigantic, these smaller films aren't events anymore. They come and go, or they just premiere on Prime, or they premiere someone else, and they get lost. So that era, this was like the last great era of these kind of small films with great little soundtracks and kind of these little things that you can kind of latch onto and enjoy. It's kind of a lost art. Christy.
Well, I purposely cheated before and gave you one of them.
Purposely cheated.
I did.
Okay.
Well, I fess up to it.
That's nice.
So the double burger made it in, so that's already out there. I can't take it back. There's no
always have full editing power.
What if you find out you're across the country and you want to take back?
Yeah. The excuses are so lame. They're like so like child.
What's
childish.
a take back?
Yeah.
I don't want to take back.
What are you talking
about?
Yeah.
It's a Skylar Will scene. I thoroughly and I'm going to give 2. Which will be 3. I thoroughly enjoy the
what
when they're in her room, the magic 8-ball scene.
Mm.
I just love the
hook.
Yeah, because it's Minnie Driver is just so natural. She's like hook, dunk, and then she's like, asking him, question if he's going to get laid tonight. She goes, "Outlook doesn't look good." And then Matt Damon just very natural. He's like, "That's the same thing that told you were going to play in the NBA." Like, it's just the chemistry between the two of them, and just the acting. I really, really, I just enjoy that scene very much. And then the Fisk scene with when they're in the office and he's telling them how he didn't go see the Carlton Fisk hit the home run, the winning home run. Instead, he was in the bar having a drink. But when he's telling the story and the way he's pretending to run around the bases and they're going and Matt Damon's like really into it and listening, it's as if he is hearing the story for the first time that he's never heard before. So again, the chemistry between these characters, just really.
I love
really
the overhead shot.
Yeah,
and it looks like a
diamond,
baseball diamond.
Yeah.
Really.
And they purposely did his office like that to have it shaped like a baseball diamond.
Love that.
Oh, see that, Eric.
So those would be my 3.
Well, aside from the moment where it's revealed what happened to Will, that of course that scene, and the scene with Ben Affleck, like I mentioned, I mean, that just because he's just and at that it's also interesting to point out that you didn't see a lot of Chucky at that point of the movie. He's not really in it all that much. And then when you do see him, they're working together now, and there's like he got him a job, he hooked him up, he's whether they're brothers in that sense, but then he gives it to him, and it's just like But then to Christy's point, though, I also love the scene with him and Skylar where she's studying and he's sitting there with her, and he says, "Come on, let's go do something." And she's like, "I have to learn this. It's important for me to learn this."
Very important.
And he's just going to give her all the answers, and she's like, "No, I have to learn this. I do have a brain." It's like, and I thought that was great because she just, she's not going to let him, do things for her. I mean, but even though they, there's that chemistry there, but it's just like, no, she's got her own thing going on as well. And that's important to know too. Despite the breakup, she still leaves. She goes to California. She's moving on, so, but that's a great scene too, I think. It's just
because she could have easily have taken advantage of him, right? Of his abilities to get her to pass through college. So no, that's great.
To that scene, I also like how he explains to her how his brain works. I thought that was good.
Yes.
I enjoyed the writing of that, where he's like, "No, I see a box with keys, but when it comes to math, I could always just play." I did enjoy his.
And she does ask him at one point, "Do you have photographic memory?"
Yeah.
And that's
Did you see him read Sean's book? He's like,
but that's the thing. It's like she could see things in him as well. She's got the intuitive.
Yeah, she's intuitive.
Well,
Yeah, absolutely. She's a match for him. Not necessarily on an educational level of an IQ level, but on an intellectual level of being a real person. Mm-hmm. She stands by that. She doesn't waver. Like you said, she could have taken advantage of his abilities, but she's like, no, this is what's right. This is the right way for me to do this, even though you can. It's
she's
got integrity. There's integrity.
Right. There's no bullshit about her. Even in the fight scene, she's like, I don't know what's going to happen with us, but I'm willing to take a shot.
Yeah,
take the chance. She was so honest there. The truth of that. Yeah, it's heartbreaking.
She's like, she's just as much in the dark as he is. This is, you kind of go with it. My favorite scenes, oddly enough, are I really like the sparring of Stellan Skarsgård and Robin Williams, like two really good actors going at it, and especially because they're so diametrically opposed as characters, where Gerald is so condescending and so, oh, you want the Fields Medal, you can have it. It's like, fuck you, stick the Fields Medal up your ass. Like, but then they always circle back, they always circle back to their friendship. They're always able to, and that's the way friends are, friends can fight and they can go at it and it doesn't kind of blow up and end everything. They recircle. And especially at the very end when like Kevin said, when Jerry comes back at the end, and he wants to say, I'm sorry. And then he's, I was being ironical, and like the whole thing of, the drinks are free. He's like, I was being ironical. And it kind of almost takes them, and the way Jerry laughs at it, almost I almost imagine that's the way they were when they were students.
Yeah.
Like that for me, it kind of immediately kind of like brought their relationship back to probably the way they were when they were together, when no one knew anything and nobody was famous. There was that relationship that they could, they could rely on each other, and they were friends, and they kind of made it through that college experience together. So those scenes with those two titans kind of sparring, like all those scenes at the table when they first meet, when they're at the restaurant, then they're at the bar and they're having another sparring session. I really enjoy those kind of, because you really get to see Robin Williams kind of really go toe to toe with somebody, as opposed to, his scenes with Will are kind of more of in a mentor type thing. But this was going head to head and really advocating for somebody and making a case for it. And with all the baggage that the both of them had, that they bring forward to it, that they kind of throw in each other's faces because of this young guy. So,
it's great.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So I think that's going to do it for this episode of the 3324 podcast. If you made it this far, we're going to ask you again, go ahead and give us a review on your favorite podcast provider platform. It could be Google, it could be Amazon, it could even be Pandora, Spotify, any one of those, Apple. Go ahead and give us a 5-star rating. It really helps us out. If you want to see more of Kevin Howard, give us a 5-star rating. We're going to hold him hostage until we get 5-star ratings. We're going to get an imposter. We're going to get Rowan Atkinson to accept his Emmy when he wins.
Jeez.
Why Rowan Atkinson?
Why not Mr. Bean?
Do I walk funny?
No, it's just,
I mean, I know I do, but
yeah. I've never watched you walk away, so I couldn't tell you.
So is it safe to say that Kevin is now officially a part of the group now?
I don't know. You'd have to have him
back. You'd have to see Kevin. How it turns out.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh, I'd love to come back.
He wants all the download analytics before he agrees to another episode. He wants to see his performance.
Kevin, are you going to demand that the next film you do is a Julia Roberts film, or is that over?
I still like her, but
it's not what it was.
No.
When's your birthday?
If we ever did a film, it would probably be Erin Brockovich. If we ever did Julia Roberts.
This is randomly tell me.
or Ocean's 11.
I will tell you, Kevin was one of the most interesting single serve friends I've ever had.
Oh.
Come on, you get the reference? There we go.
Fight Club. Yes, it was a Fight Club reference.
We've done it.
All right. Well, hopefully, Kevin, we would love to have you back. It was so much fun.
Yeah. I'll be back.
Again, Kevin is part of the Star Wars universe now, so hopefully he won't lose a hand, as does happen in Star Wars universe. People get hands cut off. So hopefully he survives that. We'll have to read. Actually, you know what? We'll drop a link to the book on Amazon.
Yeah, it's in from a certain point of view. Return of the Jedi.
Yeah, we'll drop an Amazon link if people want to check out the book or buy the ebook. And they can. Do you know what story you're in? What it's called?
Yeah, it's called The Veteran.
The Veteran. Okay.
By Adam Lance Garcia.
Okay. So we'll drop a link in the show notes for that. So absolutely check out Kevin and wish him luck on his Emmy journey. Hopefully we wish you luck there.
Thank you so much.
Saul
and cross for you.
Yeah.
Congrats.
So, and
either
way, regardless, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And we would love to have you back for Spy Kids 3. No?
Is that Island of Lost Dreams?
That's with the debut of Shark Boy and Lava Girl. No, I don't know. Anywho, for Christy. What? God, what? Last thing? Anybody?
No, I was just going to say, and Christy, thank you for being here again.
We have to
thank you, Eric.
We have to thank Christy every time.
We do.
She needs like an engraved thank you.
I do.
I'm just going to get a big light back here and just thank you, Christy.
Oh, and neon. That would be nice.
Exactly.
I like that.
If Eric approves the budget request, we will do that for you.
They don't use it. They'll probably use it as a dartboard when he logs off.
If he doesn't sign off on it, we won't be able to get it. But that's going to do it for this episode. New episodes come out every Thursday, so go check those out. You know where they are if you're here. So for Christy, for Mr. Kevin Howard, and for Eric, this has been Dean, asking you to please be kind and rewind.